Incremental greetings, it's been a while. Today, what I want to show you is actually not from me, it's from someone else. Someone else's collection, and we will go through his stats and let's see if we see something different. Because it was limited that I could only show my own stats. So it was always the same kind of thing, so it was pointless to keep going. And I would like to use this video as a starting point. This user actually offered his collection right away, so I didn't request that, but now I do. So I will do another video how you can make your collection anonymous, which here is not the case. So for your privacy, it's stats, not the content, not the images and all of it. Here are the stats of this user, and then we will go to the main, and then we will cover the statistics. This will be more juicy. So, it happens to be that I know this user in real life. And it was the actually first SuperMemo user I knew in real life. Well, first I met him from Discord, then in real life. So for me that was the first. And here we go, first again with sharing his collection. Then I know he does free learning, so in his collection he has a lot of different stuff, whatever he may be interested. Languages, physics, mathematics, language, neuroscience. I said language twice, I don't know why. Cool. Then keep in mind that I think a few weeks have passed. That means that some of the stats only reflect today, which are meaningless. So I will only cover what's the average or accumulation across time in the collection. So he has about, I think the collection is 3 years and 1 month, which by the way, I'm about to do the 3-year milestone myself in a few weeks. So he started slightly before me, 10,000 items memorized, which is less than 10 items a day, okay. Retention rate, it's below the 95%. Therefore, the measure forget index is larger than 10%, makes sense. Even though the average forgetting index it's 10.14. Oh, that's the requested forgetting index. So I already know that he has something above 10 of the requested forgetting index. Interesting. He has done 34,000 repetitions for 10,000 items, so it's roughly 3 point something repetitions per item, which is not that much for a 3-year-old collection, an average of 3. Also considering that the interval is 1 year and 3 months. So roughly by average we could say that it only takes 3 repetitions by average to send an item to a longer interval than a year already. The speed is in the 360 items per year per minute, which is within the average. Slightly kind of low because it's still 3 years. This will be going lower and lower as time passes. And the average time, response time for items, it's 17. It's quite high. So this user takes a lot of time to hit show answer. I know if he's editing a lot of the question before showing the answer, or a lot of thinking, or the questions are super long, so just reading the question takes time already. So what I will do actually is I will do my assumptions and some speculation, and when that user sees his own video, I will get what I was wrong, what I was right, and so on. So it will be a fun experiment. So let's see the stats. Well, usually I see the stats, but those are actually analytics, I think. So if you go to the SuperMemo manual, stats is actually this window. That is not that useful, to be honest. A lot of stuff doesn't actually need to be present at all times. So let's go to the analytics. Let's go by order. Work done. So you could say it's not that consistent. Well, it's not consistent in the duration of the session across the day. But he has been using SuperMemo for 3 years, almost every single day, most of the time. So we see here when it's 0, here and there, 1 day off. With the exception of July, let's see. Yeah, July 2021, my best guess, it will be vacation. So what we see already is that the time investment changes a lot very frequently. So 3 hour-ish, 1 hour-ish, 3 hours is again 10 minutes, 1 hour and something, 20 minutes, 1 hour and a half, 10 minutes, and things like that. No clue. My best guess is that he uses SuperMemo when he wants, and let's assume for as long as he wants most of the time. And now everything, whoops, at the end everything is a straight line because the copy was from that day. It's been several weeks until I got this copy. Cool. Recall time, more or less the same pattern. Repetitions, it will be similar. Items and topics. Let's see. Whoa, wow. Here you go. What happened that day? So there are some outliers. More than 250 topic repetitions, topic reviews, and more than 300 and something. My best guess, it will be a subset of something very short, or subset for the sake of cramming for an exam. I know that person was in college, so he was free learning, as I said, but he was also cramming for specific things. Yeah, we can get... it's unlikely, because it's in August. I don't know if some countries you have exams in August. That doesn't seem like that. Cool. Outstanding. Nice. Let me filter first. That's the entire thing, all of the elements. Now we have items and topics. Interesting. Here you go. So this is a straight line, makes sense, because he hasn't used SuperMemo for a month or so on July 2021. So therefore, the outstanding is flat. Cool. So more or less, his outstanding was manageable, under 30, slightly above 30, but under 100. And bada-boom, there's a huge outlier of 500. He may have imported items, my best guess, or add to outstanding is another option, but he has only done once. So it's pretty sure that he's just learning and he only creates items when he needs to. And it's interesting because his usage, if you remember the work done and use time, it's wild, the difference. It goes up and down very often. Yet, the outstanding queue, yeah, it's more or less the same kinematics, the same kind of waves, but more relaxed, a lot more relaxed. He has a huge outstanding, 20,000 items today, but it's been some days, no worries, it will be lower. He doesn't finish the outstanding queue. How can we know that? By looking at priority protection. And here you go, just corroborates that. So he was actually finishing the priority queue, at least for items. When you hit 100% priority protection, that means that all, regardless of the priority of the elements that are items in the same queue, have been covered, have been reviewed that day. And the opposite is when you don't do anything. The straight line here. That means that when he didn't use SuperMemo for a while, it was actually very low, the priority queue. The priority protection, that means a priority, let's say, of an item of, I don't know, 2% or so. And I'm pretty sure he did a lot of repetitions here. And he eventually managed to go through everything. But what happened in March, February? Yeah, Mid-February 2022, he stopped carrying. I am actually glad. It's actually positive that he stopped caring about finishing the outstanding topics. Items, I mean. Even though I should say that operator protection it's actually kind of low. No big deal if you don't finish outstanding queue. But if you don't, at least you want to cover the highest priority items. At some degree of randomness. So you don't want the order of explicitly follow the priority. With the sorting criteria you can customize that. But it's surprising that it's... and he was getting higher and higher, more or less. With high and lows, but the tendency was to get it until 10%. Okay, makes sense. That is for items. Let's see for topics. Wow, that's even more drastic and actually makes sense because at the beginning you import a little. Yes, you can do the outstanding topics, but as soon as you get a few hundred, it is absolutely impossible to finish that. And it's usually very, very low. Yeah, this makes more sense. And this one spike here, I'm pretty sure it's a manual postpone, mercy, this kind of thing. We can, since it's one single day, we could pinpoint the date and then look at that date in particular. That was the outstanding. Yeah, standing items, if you remember. Cool. And outstanding topics. Yeah, he was finishing at the beginning 100% because he had 20, 40, and so on. And then it's not that much. But he was not finishing this because if I'm not mistaken, this means the newly outstanding topics. So let's say in this particular day, it had about 50 new outstanding topics. So let's say you have 13,000 like today, it will be 13,050. So keep that in mind, that this is accumulative. So it makes sense that even if in this graph it goes lower, the overall quantity is actually incrementing every single day. Cool. That's why, for instance, now it's a flat line of all those days that have passed. It doesn't go negative because it can only accumulate. So that means no more topics have been added in some weeks. Interesting. Perhaps everything is the... Let me check. Oh, wow. Look at that. He has 13,519 topics, out of which 13,019 are outstanding. So there are like exactly 500 left, precisely. And of those 500, let me see how many are dismissed. Are just elements, not topics. We'll have to check that. But overall, we could say that almost his entire collection, topic-wise, is outstanding. So I can really guarantee he doesn't use auto-postpone, or his rules, his criteria for auto-postpone are super relaxed, with a lot of margin for priority. And he has no auto-postpone checked. Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Burden. Here we go. What happened here? That it will be congruent of this huge increase in a single day if there has been an import, especially for items. And if you remember in some graph, we had this idea already that he could have imported a lot because one day he had like 500 outstanding or something like that. I forgot the date. That will be about April, end of April 2022. Out of the ordinary. You can tell now if we only check item burden. That's pretty, it's a dead giveaway. 100-ish to 600-ish, yeah, about 500. It's more or less the same amount. And then I don't know if he was deleting incrementally here. It was getting down and down every single day, but not in bulk. And then another 150 more or less items in bulk again. So for quite long of times until September. So 1 year and slightly more, he haven't used actually much topics, and then he has a huge increase. That's a tipping point for sure in September. So he changed how he used SuperMemo. He started to import more articles, or to write more, or perhaps to split or extract more than before, or a combination of those. And he kept doing that since today. Element count. Yeah, same as before, no surprises. Items, topics, yeah, and tasks. Yeah, anecdotal usage. He only used 9 and then 8 topics. Sorry. Task list books. Okay, something I learned is that, yeah, when you save the collection, you save the task list. In this case, this user has multiple. I won't share that because the information is kept. Just to let you know, it's after books, which is actually kind of good, doesn't give away anything. He has one task list of homework. So that's guaranteed. He used SuperMemo for homework, yeah, for college. So I don't know how much he actually used the task list for real within SuperMemo, because I don't see much of a change. I mean, he only got rid of one task in some years. Yeah. And he got rid of that in July. And it's funny that I cannot change the task list. So I'm pretty sure books will be his default. Let's keep going. Memorized. Same as before. This can only increase unless you delete stuff. Newly memorized. Here you go. Let me select by just items. This can only be achieved, newly memorized, by doing things in bulk. Add to outstanding. Set remember. If you use the pending queue, that's something you can do. Usually after a mass import, and he has done this multiple times, but not that crazy. 800, 1000 is not that much actually. To my standards, it's not a big deal. Efficiency. Forgetting index by day. So his average forgetting index is 12, but we can see that sometimes it's crazy high. Crazy. And also into 5% or less. Quite a lot of times. My take-home conclusion here for this graph is that he's not that consistent using SuperMemo. It's not, and makes sense, because sometimes he only uses SuperMemo for 5 minutes. So therefore, the forgetting index will be very prone, very dependent of the repetitions you do that day. If, let's say, you only do 10. And some days he spends hours. So if he does a couple of hundred of repetitions, it's likely his forgetting index is more on the average and is not that of an outlier. Pretty much the same. Retention rate. He achieved 100% quite a lot of times, and look at that, 30, wow, even 20 something percent. Yeah, perhaps is when he did a lot of outstanding queue to catch up. We could check the dates, but since it's quite a lot more times, I think it will be more scenarios here. No need to check that. And recall, I think that's more or less how Anki calculates what they call to the retention. That is just a fraction. How many correct answers over how many answers, and that's it, with no logarithmic things in the equation. And they are pretty similar. Yeah, I think it's only about the numbers, but all of the kinematics are the same. Overload. Wow, crazy highs, crazy lows. You know that in SuperMemo, in incremental reading, you always have information overload and more outstanding and so on, even if you keep postponing. I think Piotr has some items that he postponed like 100 times automatically, but 100 times or a couple of years. Yeah, so that depends how if you use auto postpone or not. I'm not that knowledgeable now to infer more information from here. Yeah, so this is almost none because he hasn't used SuperMemo, makes sense. And no apparent difference, much difference with items and topics. Cool. Unpredictable protection that we covered already. Forgetting. Oh, wow. Oh my god. 0 at 11 days. Okay. So first, that is super fishy. 445 repetitions taking the count in this calculation. I'm inclined to think that at some point, if this collection is 3 years old, he has reset this value. The repetitions are too small. I don't know how it actually works, but I know that SuperMemo only use certain quantity of repetitions. It doesn't use your entire history of repetitions to do all of those calculations, but this is way too small. Optimum interval, it's set at the maximum. I also have 33 days, capped by design. He has 100% quite a lot of times, and some outliers, 50 and 0 at 11 days and about 2 weeks. But look at the size of the they look like dots, but should be circles. That means that the information is way too scarce. So it's not that this plot is not that meaningful. Look what happens with some other metrics. It's only anecdotal cases, because overall you only have 400 on what? Sorry, forgot. And 45, yeah. And he has 34,000. Yeah. He has 70 times more than that. So I'm pretty sure this could be also because he changed how he approaches SuperMemo. He wanted to reset that. Perhaps he doesn't use SuperMemo for college anymore. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure he changed dramatically one of the features, how he approaches SuperMemo. Forgetting, look at that, almost 10,000 cases. Okay, that's a lot more meaningful. And yeah, look at that, the yellow line. There's a tendency of loss of recall with a higher time interval. Makes sense. Quite odd. I think perhaps this is because he has heterogeneous difficulty of material. Some material is very hard, some is very easy. So this skews more or less the graphs. Because in SuperMemo you cannot distinguish, you cannot pinpoint, I only want graphs and the plots for this specific branch. It has to be all the entire collection. Let's go by stability, stabilization, memory stability, retriability. You know, retriability is one of the components of long-term memory. I actually don't check this that much. And there are only 3 cases. What? Okay, I have to select difficulty, so I will change the order then. Let me see distributions. In this case, difficulties. Yeah, that's the most common. Most tutorees had this flow. So a huge spike, but followed by 2 above average points, and then it goes higher at the very end and at the very bottom. I mean, the lowest difficulty to the highest. And that's what I have in my own collection as well. So we select 0.63, here you go. I'm pretty sure you have more cases. Oh my god. Oh, here you go, 500. Okay, that's more meaningful. 16. Yeah, okay, let's just check this one. And even though if you see the size, most of the data is on the first 2 points already. Oh my god. Yeah. So I think I will skip this. I'm not knowledgeable enough. I could do this when for a course and check the official documentation. Okay, the A factor. Remember, stands for absolute factor or absolute difficulty, more or less. It could be like the ease in Anki. So the higher it is, the quicker the interval will grow. And this is quite high. I think 10 seems quite high. And then it decreases again. Let's see only 4 items. Okay. This I was mesmerized. Okay. I think this is also glitched from SuperMemo, because it doesn't make sense that here for topics the A factor is 1.9, which it's the no mode, and actually it's more or less the average. Let me check. Here, A factor, it's 1.61. Just a little more than the mode. Okay. Then, for items, it's about 5. So more or less here. So the average doesn't represent, it's not representing much of the sample. So most of the elements that in this case are items have 3.9. So this A factor is already higher than in Anki. I think you start at 2.5 and you get increased by 0.15 every time. So it will be super unlikely to have this 3.9 as a mode and almost 5 as an average. Okay, makes sense. And it gets higher at 6.3 and 6.6. I'm pretty sure that's because of very long outstanding repetitions, but very delayed and successful. So you get a huge bonus on the A factor. Then intervals. Yeah, not many long well, what, 400. So basically, low interval can mean several things. You just created that item. It's very recently created. Second, you just lapse that item, so it has been reset. And then almost a year. Keep in mind his average interval is 1 year and 3 months, almost 4 months. So makes sense. But I'm still impressed. He has more than 400 items in 1, 2, 3, and 4 intervals. Keep in mind his optimum interval is 33 days. Repetitions by average, just items, he has done 3.2, almost 3.3. Makes sense. The mode, even though it's 4, so even if he stops creating items, he will get more and more repetitions, but not that many, because he's in multi-year interval already. So if he does 2 more reps, let's say up to 5 by average, the intervals will be in a decade already. So it will be kind of hard to go beyond that. Then, most repetitions, there are a lot of items with 1 single repetition, actually more than 2. So perhaps those are because he created the items and that's it. There's only the automatic repetition being counted. Interesting. What about topics? So most of the topics, again, 1 single repetition. This could be that it's all the automatic and that's it. And it decays below 1,000 already with 3 reps. That's kind of low for having 3 years. Finally, lapses. Obviously, topics doesn't have lapses, so items. He lapsed at least once more than 1,000, so about more than 10% of his collection. Twice, 3, and then it gets... What is that? That's a different graph. Here you go. I think I reported this issue. I am lapses, but when you use the mouse wheel, you get another stat. That's not right. Okay. Shit. Okay, there's no way to isolate that now for whatever reason. I cannot export it either, so we are out of luck. Cool. Graphs. For getting index versus priority. Yeah, this spike usually it's very common. Keep in mind this is not linear, it's exponential. So this only takes 0.01% of the priority queue. So unless you have a million items or a million elements in your collection, just a few elements will be in this percentage. So whatever you do, how you recall those few items will plot this. So that's not meaningful. So more or less in a flat line, so usually what you will expect is that the lower the priority, so the closer to the 100%, let's move it here. The closer to the 100% it is, so the lowest priority, the higher the forgetting index. Which this is true from 65 to 100%. Keep in mind, only the last 4 dots is close to half of the collection already. Half of the priority queue. This is kind of misleading because it's not linear. Cool. First interval. First interval in days and lapses. So it makes sense that he lapses when the first interval is longer, up to 10 days. Makes sense. And he doesn't lead much. Let's see. From 0 lapses, the interval is quite high, 12 days. And then stays more or less linearly. And here you can see by the size of the bubble that this is just meaningless. It's just representing anecdotic portion of the collection. D factor versus A factor. I'm not sure if this is actually used in SM18. I usually don't take a look on the D factor. So I'm actually not knowledgeable how to interpret this lack of usage, to be honest. First grade. Okay, grade is when 3 is successful, 4 is successful and easier, and 5 is easy. 1 is when you say again, yeah, you lapse. 2 will be that you lapse, again, you forgot, but not as much. And there is 1 that is not even shown when you do the repetitions, that it's 0. And means absolute blackout. That I don't know, I don't remember the answer, I don't recall. And I don't even recall having this in my collection or even having heard of the question or any context whatsoever. It's absolute blackout. That usually it's not used. I don't suggest to use it. And I know particularly that this user used the 0. So that's why I mentioned that. Okay, so the grade, so that will be, let's say, the default. If you just press space all the time, you will get a 3. And then the A factor. Cool. So there's a spike of 3 and 3.6. The grades are higher than usual. And this makes sense that at the end, the A factor is super high. Because if it's easier for you and you rate 5, it will increase the A factor. So it's almost a given. They go hand in hand. So upcoming repetitions, as long as you're successful, they will keep increasing the A factor, or it will be capped. But interestingly, he doesn't have 6.9. That is the cap. Yeah, he has, but that's anecdotal. There are not many data points here. And he has very low A factors. It makes sense that the grade is below 3. What that does mean that by average, it's less than successful. That means there are lapses. A lot of lapses here. And grade versus forgetting index. Okay, it's more, as you can see in the yellow, it's decaying, which is what you will expect. So it goes by 4, almost everything is above 4, up to 10 for getting index, which is the default, and his requested for getting index by average in the collection was 10 point something percent, let me check, 14, 10.14. So makes sense that after the requested for getting index, he gets an average of lower grades because there will be more glitches. Not necessarily glitches, but lapses. Even though he's super constant. You have all of these fancy 3Ds and even the 4D and so on, but that's a huge overkill. So we'll skip all of those. Yeah, and the matrix, okay. Cool. Is that we can actually check the workload. Okay, so here we have the 4 years of this collection. It's 3 years and some months, but it was started in 2020. So look at the repetitions. 7,800, 26,000. Makes sense because it was the entire year. He started in June. Then 23,000, slightly less than previous year. And then this year, 7,000, but again, up to June. If you get the average, you could see that in July, he doesn't do much, and in June, he doesn't do much topics. Interesting. And this is a pattern, June, July, and in this case, April as well, the other year. Okay, so even though the daily, it's 20 and 19 and 17 for topics and 20. So he's pretty consistent. Let's go by daily. Let's see what we see. New items per day. So that's the start of his collection. Yeah, you can tell some days he used SuperMemo a lot. Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. What about retention? Yeah, this is significant because he used SuperMemo almost every day, but one in this month. But the average retention is just 82%. It's kind of low, even though some days he got 100%, assuming he did very little repetitions. I'm gonna actually check that. Let's see, April 19th. Yeah, 2 and 3. Yeah, this is not meaningful. But this 111, so April 7th and 21st. 7th and 23rd is more meaningful because there are more repetitions here. It is something. So he has kind of ups and downs that he performs extraordinarily good. It's just because of, oops, sorry. He does, I mean, it's one single repetition. And again, one single repetition. Here again, one. Here too. So that's why it's kind of misleading. If you see 100% that, oh wow, top performance. No, it's one single successful rep. That was entire session. 4 items, I mean. That's the usage. That's what I did during recording the videos today. July 1st is today. I think June 19th is I just check out quickly the collection and that's it. And all the previous, it's genuine usage. So something that we already see and that I know from him is that he kind of free runs his sleep. So he goes to sleep pretty late at night. And even though it's not consistent day to day, he doesn't lock his sleep. But just based on the usage, you can see that he's using up, oh my god. So there is no consistency what time of the day he uses SuperMemo, at least by the time. Perhaps it's consistent by the time of waking. So let's say he always uses SuperMemo from the 3rd hour to the 5th, let's say, and so on. Since I cannot see his sleeping pattern, but at least this looks incremental. There are a lot of tiny sessions across the day in different times of the And here we can see finally some long sessions. But at the very least, he's super consistent in being, oh, look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. Look how how interleaved the sessions are. So I don't know if he was using multiple collections. So he was still using SuperMemo continuously, but different collections. Or he was interleaving with something else. So now what I will do with the hypotheses and the assumptions I made, let's go further and let's see the stats through the browser. I will keep the title as minimum because even if I get rid of all of the files and so on, I still get some of the texts. Okay, so for privacy, I will keep it like that. So the maximum he has is 24 repetitions, and interestingly, it's in a topic. And the second is actually a task. Interesting. And even a concept. I was not expecting that. So overall, then let me filter the items. So I just ordered by repetitions, and I'm filtering only items. So the maximum it's 11 repetitions. 10, 9. Interesting. What about lapses? Wow, look at that. 17 lapses. 13, 10, 10, 11, 11, and 10. That is ridiculous. So if we check the repetition history of that element, yeah, there are lapses that are consecutive. And look at the priority. It was kind of high priority. Then a huge change, go back to normal. Then super high, I don't know why it was that high, perhaps because it was leached. He wanted to prioritize the leeches. Same. So my best guess is that it's too asemantic for him. This is for language. I think it's Tamil or one of the languages from India. So there are no lapses, right? Yeah, no lapses. So the repetition count is genuine. There are only one single repetition done, and the interval is up to 4 days. That's 10% of the collection, by the way. Let me actually do the process the browser and the statistics. Yeah, item repetitions 1. Lol. That means that all of the repetitions here, but 1, are automatic. So there's no manual repetition done from the user. And happens to be that the A factor is 3.9. If you remember, that was one of the most common. Yeah, look at that. If I sort by the absolute factor, or the A factor, the lowest is 3.2 already. So those 1000 elements that happen to be items seems to have almost no human repetitions. And let's check that last repetition done. Oh, this is super fishy. Look at that, April 29th. And August 15. Ha! August 15, 2022, and April 29th. If you remember the stats, analytics, I mean. Bada-ba-boom! 1000, April 29th. Congruent. And the other one was August, yeah, I think it was this one, right? August something, 2022, yeah, could be this one. Now I haven't seen that. So that means that most of the items that were done in bulk here haven't been done next yet. There's no single next repetition for all of those or most of those that were done in bulk. And this is 10% of his collection. So in this case, I want topics, memorize topics with automatic repetition. 9,000. Okay. Look at the postpones. Huh. Okay, so perhaps he has been using auto postpone, but only applied to topics, not items. So I could even guess if he had, yeah, let me actually filter. Postpones, at least 6 postpones, let's do that. Okay, 700. So if I sort by priority, again, yeah, makes sense. So he doesn't have anything below 19. Yep, so I'm pretty sure threshold should have been 15, 16, something like that. Slightly lower number, so higher priority than 19. So those were not getting postponed that often. Okay, so that has been all. So sooner or later, I will see how good I was on speculating some details. I hope this has been useful for you to see some new insights. At least I'm glad that he has been using SuperMemo in a different way than I did. So we have different stats and so on. Also keep in mind, if you're curious or you just want to know about your stats, what you can improve, what you can just don't care at all, that's also important in SuperMemo. There's plenty of things that are not relevant to know and won't add to your performance. If you want this, you can also get SuperMemo tutoring, link in the description. And perhaps eventually, if I get more users, I will include those in a course to how to interpret your stats in SuperMemo, this kind of thing. So if you do, please reply or contact me, and I will let you know how to actually send me your collection without compromising your privacy. So nothing more to add today, and see you next time.